Cool, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to look at these two files and we need to see which one of them is bigger. So I'm looking at the Queen here and I can see that the file name is Untitled 2 and that it is at 25% of its full size. If I looked at this one here of Donald Trump, I can see it's at 66% of its full size. So thinking of that, which of these two images is larger? The one that's 66% at that size, or the one that's 25 at that size? This one at 25. If I use my magnifying glass tool, which is here, and zoomed into 100%, see now it says 100% there. And I did the same for Donald Trump, zoomed into 100%. I can see that the Queen is larger than Donald Trump. Cool? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my smaller image into my bigger image. Alright? So I'm going to hold down the Alt key with my magnifying glass on, and then click to zoom out for both of these. And then I'm going to go to my Donald Trump layer, and I'm going to use this tool here, the Select All tool. You could also press Control A if you wanted to. But I'm just going to use this second tool down from the top to select everything. And then I'm going to go Edit, Copy. When I do that, I'm going to make sure that this layer here, layer 1, is highlighted. Otherwise it will just copy a blank background. So I've copied my Donald Trump. I'm then going to go to the Queen and simply going to go Edit, Paste, and it will paste onto a new layer for us. Cool. So there is Mr. Trump sitting on top of the Queen. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the size of the Queen so that her head is roughly the same size as Donald Trump. Okay? And the reason I'm going to reduce the size of the Queen, not increase the size of Donald Trump, is that if I increase the size of Donald Trump, he's going to become pixelated. So I need to reduce the size of the larger layer. So to do that, I'm going to click on the layer down here that has the Queen in it. Now this Queen is highlighted. And then I'm simply going to make sure that the show, my mouse is going to be, my tool is going to be this top one here, top left. I'm going to ensure that Show Transform Controls is on, up here, up the top. That is ticked. And then it'll bring up these little boxes around the edge of the Queen. I need to move my mouse over the edge of one of these boxes so that it turns into a straight arrow. Not a curved arrow, but a straight arrow. And then I'm going to click on that and hold Shift and decrease the size. So I'm holding Shift down the whole time here while I'm dragging. And then I'm going to let go of my mouse button, but keep holding Shift down. And then I'm going to let go of everything, and I'm going to drag the Queen up a little bit. So her face still looks a little bit larger than Donald Trump, so I'm going to reduce the size again, holding down that Shift key. Alright, they're about the same size now. You can see that her shoulders are slightly narrower than Donald Trump's, but he's wearing some giant power suit, so you expect his shoulders to be wide. And then once they're at the same size there, I'm going to click this little tick up in the top right of my screen here. And that will apply the transformation. So I'm going to put Trump's face on the Queen's body, but first I want to apply some adjustments to the Queen's body. So what I'm going to do first is on the layer that's got Donald Trump on it, I'm going to click on this eyeball just to turn the visibility of that layer off. So I can't see Trump anymore. And then I'm going to click on the layer that's got the Queen on it. You know what? In fact, best practice is probably naming these layers. So I'm going to double click on layer 1 and just change it to Queen. And I'm going to double click on layer 2 and change it to Trump. And then I'm going to click back on the Queen to make sure that my Queen layer is selected. So to apply an adjustment to this layer, so that it only applies to this layer, I need to click on the Layer menu, and then go down to New Adjustment Layer. And the adjustment layer that I want to apply to this one is probably hue and saturation. Because all I'm going to change really is her dress. Because we're going to eventually remove the background. So I'm going to click on hue and saturation. And before I click OK, I'm going to click this checkbox here that says use previous layer to create clipping mask. Which means that this adjustment will only apply to the queen layer. It won't apply to the whole image. And that's what we want. We only want to change the queen's dress, not everything. So I'm using the previous layer to create a clipping mask. And then I'll click OK. And what you'll see happen on your layers menu, kind of down the bottom here, let's just open these up a little bit more, is that we've got this new adjustment layer, this hue and saturation adjustment layer, and it's got this little arrow that points down to the queen. And so this suggests that this adjustment layer here only applies to the queen. So then I'm going to decrease the saturation to make it a little bit more old-time looking. And probably decrease the lightness as well. Might leave the lightness there. And I could adjust the hue if I wanted to change the color, but I don't want to because that would look just weird. So I'm going to leave that at 0. I'll leave the lightness at 0 as well. So just decrease the saturation. In fact, I might even increase that saturation slightly. If I wanted to see what it looks like without this applied, I can click on this little eyeball here and it will turn the preview on and off. So you can see it makes that background in the face look a little bit less orange. Cool. So we've now applied our adjustment layer to the queen. Cool. So that's step 1. We have applied an adjustment layer. Of course, we can apply a whole bunch of different adjustment layers, and I would encourage you to kind of try them out in your own time, but under the layer menu, under new adjustment layer, this changes the brightness and contrast of that particular layer. The levels talks about the different colors and how much of each color is coming through. Curves does the same thing, but it gives you a little bit more control. Has anyone done photography before? Played with a manual camera? If you have, then the exposure tab will be maybe a little bit familiar to you. You can change the exposure of the image. The vibrance is how bright things are, how much color, how much saturated color is coming through. Hue and saturation we've just done. And you can have a play with the rest of these if you want to. Okay, so step 2 for us is we're going to use a pen tool to create a layer mask that we'll eventually use to cut out all the background here. Okay? Okay, so next step is to cut out the background of this image. So we're going to cut out all of the wall here and probably cut off some of the crown as well, because her hair is quite big and Donald Trump's hair, while it's ridiculous, is not quite as big as the Queen's hair is. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the pen tool, which is down here above the text or the type tool. If you can't see it there, it might be that one of the other pen options is on there, like the convert point tool. If you hold down on this and then drag across, you can select the pen tool. And we're going to create a new path. So the path is next to the layers. We're going to click create a new path, and this is going to be called Queen Background. So on this little drop down, I've clicked on path here, and on this little drop down beside path, I'm just going to select new path. I'm going to call it Queen BG for background. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my magnifying glass and I'm going to zoom all the way in. And I'm going to zoom in just to the edge of the image first, so like the place where I'm going to first start cutting. So where the edge of the image meets the background, which is down here. And I'm going to zoom into a point where it starts to get pixely, like it kind of is here. I'm then going to use my pen tool, so click back on my pen tool. And I'm just going to click once where the background meets the edge of the image. And this will take a little bit of practice using the pen tool. So that's my first anchor point. I'm then going to move up slightly to where it kind of curves out a bit. And I'm going to click and hold and drag. And that's dragging out, so maybe it's a little bit hard to see, but that's dragging out some line And I want that line to most closely match the border between the background and the dress. So I'm just going to drag it out to about there. Then I'm going to move up the page a little bit. And I'm going to go down here to where the dress comes in a little bit. And I'm going to click to create a new anchor point and drag that out again. And then I can drag another anchor point out. Keep on moving up. So basically what we're trying to do is trace the outline of the dress. Now I'm going to pause the video here and continue doing this until I'm finished. So the last point I clicked is here at the bottom of the image. I want to join this last point up with the first point that I clicked, which was over here. So all I'm going to do is, from this last point, my next point is going to be this one. And I'm going to make sure that before I get over it, you'll see that this little tiny circle appears next to my pen tool. So I need to make sure that that circle appears before I click. So it's appeared, so I'll click on it now. And my path is finished up. And if you look at the layer, at the path over here, Queen BG, you can see that it looks like a full path now. Now, I've made a couple of mistakes though. And I know that a few of you have made similar mistakes. So I'm going to show you. See the edge of my arm up here? I've gone kind of wonky. My path doesn't quite follow the edge of the dress appropriately, so I need to fix this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this white arrow tool here on the menu. And that lets me change all those points that I've made and the handles that I've created. So if I click on this white arrow here, near the bottom, I've got this point out here that's kind of floating off the edge of the dress that I don't want there. So I'm going to drag that away for a second. I've got this point here that isn't quite working out, so what I'm going to do is move it slightly. Then I'm going to use these handles here. I'm going to adjust these handles until they more closely match the edge of the dress. Now you'll notice the longer the handle is, the more intense that part of the line is. Like, the more intense the effect of the handle is. So if I have a really short handle, it doesn't have much effect. But if I have a long handle, it's got a really powerful effect. I can then drag this anchor point down to the edge of the dress and adjust the handles so it more closely matches the edge of the dress. Cool, that looks good. So all I'm going to do now is zoom out because I've completed my path. It looks really good. On my path here, with Queen BG selected, I'm going to go to my drop-down menu and click Make Selection. I'm not going to feather it at all. Actually, no, I might feather it by 1 pixel. And what feathering does, it just makes a slightly softer edge. And then I'm going to click OK. And so I've made a selection here. This is like a really specific selection based on all those points that I made. What I want to do is, once the selection is made, if I click back on my Layers menu and click on my Queen, and then click on the Layer Mask button, which is down the bottom here. It's like a rectangle with a circle inside it. Click on this. I have removed all the background from my image. Cool? So I'll leave this video in this teaching session here, and tomorrow or next time we'll look at how to chuck the other head on and apply some more effects to this file.